The world's population is increasing by 140,000 people per day, all aspiring legitimately to the same living standards that we enjoy. In just 30 years, that's in one generation time, 2 billion people more will share the planet, which is more than the total amount of population on the planet at the beginning of the 20th century. Looking to the future, the business as usual scenario will thus simply not work, and transition from the current resource-intensive growth model to a resource-efficient growth model to a circular economy, it's absolutely necessary. It is actually inevitable for all the economies. For the first time, we humans are affecting the balance of our planet. Of course, this growth model is more advanced in the industrialized part of the world. But the danger that the emerging economies, those where most of those 3 billion new middle-class consumers live, would follow the same development path, it's more than real. It may sound hypocritical for rich countries to say, grow as we say, not as we did. And of course, those 3 billion have just, as I said, as much right to a decent quality of life. But the resource-intensive growth model of the previous century can simply not be extended to today's global population. The Rio Summit showed that in this century, the EU and emerging powers will be in the 21st century partners. We face the same resource pressures and environmental challenges, even if at different stages of our development. But of course, we will also be competitors. An increasing competition for resources leads to economic, but not only to economic, but also to political pressures or even to real conflicts. The fact that we will be in such greater competition means that we have to find ways to better manage our resource use. I would dare to guess that in the future, strategic partnerships will be built around resources more than in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, these pressures on natural resources will be most significant limiting factor on our ability to grow and provide higher living standards also within the European Union. Europe is of course part of that interconnected and interdependent world, an important part. All the challenges I have just mentioned are also our challenges. On the top of that, we are in the turmoil of the most serious financial, economic, or even political crisis. We are struggling to find a way out to stabilize and reform our economies and to find effective ways to inject new growth and create new jobs. The European economy is built on decades of resource-intensive growth. We use 16 tons per person per year. We throw away 6 tons of that, and half of that waste is buried in the ground as landfill. So 3 tons per person every year. We import most of our energy and materials. More than half of the materials that we use are imported. We import 6 times more than we export. We have the world's highest net imports of resources per person. The real innovation challenge for companies is to shift innovation potential from labor to the resource productivity. This is also the core question connected to necessary structural changes. It is not only a question of our future environmental agenda. As some might see it, it is actually a central question of our future competitiveness, and it should be the essence of our new industrial policy. To be clear, I'm absolutely not supporting deindustrialization of Europe, but I do believe dematerialization of our industry is necessary as a precondition to keep this industry in Europe. For this, we need change. We need to rethink the way we function, the way we produce, the way we consume. The process of economic recovery cannot only be about stimulating growth, it has to be about building the basis for a different quality of growth in order to ensure prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable future. This is why the EU has made the efficient use of natural resources one of the pillars of its economic growth strategy. What does resource efficiency actually mean? It means using less stuff, but getting more value and well-being from it. It means reducing the environmental impact of the resources we use. We have to turn that human creativity and innovation that so successfully exploited those resources to provide us with health and prosperity, to rolling out those benefits to billions more people in ways that exploit resources less. We need industry and investors on board. Rather than fighting the power of capital or trying to legislate away its environmental downsides, we need to harness market forces to turn economies onto a track that is sustainable economically, financially, socially, and environmentally. We need green economics. But industry and investors also need to take environmental concerns on board. Rather than trying to convince everybody how damaging environmental regulation is for their competitiveness, they should rather use that money and energy for innovating necessary solutions. Planning the transition to a sustainable economy is the only sustainable way forward. And it is simply not about tomorrow, it's actually about today. It is the only way to avoid going from a financial to an environmental credit crunch. This is not just a green growth agenda, it is a growth agenda that happens to be green. If Europe wants to retain an industrial base, it must start to innovate, invest, specialize in the activities where it will have a comparative advantage in the global context of competition for resources. To put it simple, it is actually not about green growth, it is just about growth. Full stop.